In the Hebrew Bible, the ancient Israelites are described as a people chosen to worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Their identity was built around covenant, law, and loyalty to one God. In the biblical story, they were commanded to enter the land of Canaan and remove its inhabitants, because those nations were seen as idolaters who practiced corrupt religion and immoral customs. This command appears most strongly in the books of Deuteronomy and Joshua. The Canaanites are presented as nations whose religious practices threatened Israel's faith. The Israelites were told not merely to live among them, but to destroy their altars, reject their gods, and in some passages wipe them out completely. This was known as a holy war, or a war of total devotion. Whether one reads these passages as literal history, theological memory, or ancient war language, the message is clear. The biblical conquest was framed as a struggle between monotheism and idolatry. The Israelites were not commanded to remove people simply because they were foreign. They were commanded to resist a religious order that the Bible presents as idolatrous and morally corrupt. This creates a deep historical irony in the modern Holy Land. Today, many Palestinians in the land are Muslims and Christians. They are not idolaters. They worship the God of Abraham. Muslims honor Abraham as a prophet and see themselves as followers of his pure monotheism. Palestinian Christians also worship the God of Abraham through their own religious tradition. In other words, many of the people now facing displacement, occupation, and violence are themselves believers in the Abrahamic God. Yet some modern Israeli political and settler movements use the Bible to justify domination over the same land. They speak of ancient promises, biblical borders, and divine inheritance. Some use this language to defend settlements, expulsions, or the denial of Palestinian national rights. The irony is sharp. In the ancient biblical story, the Israelites were commanded to remove idolaters from the land. In the modern political story, biblical language is sometimes used against Palestinians who are not idolaters at all, but worshippers of the God of Abraham. There is another irony. Modern Zionism began largely as a secular nationalist project, rather than a religious movement. Many of its early leaders were atheists and secular nationalists. Even today, a large number of Israeli Jews identify as secular or non-observant, while some also identify as atheist or do not believe in God in a traditional religious sense. Yet biblical claims are still used in political arguments over land, sovereignty, and settlement. This does not mean all Jews support such policies. Many Jews, including religious Jews, reject occupation, racism, and violence against Palestinians. Many see the prophetic message of the Bible as a call to justice, humility, and protection of the stranger. The problem is not Judaism itself, but political Zionism when it uses scripture selectively to sanctify power, land control, and the denial of Palestinian rights. When ancient scripture is used without moral reflection, it can become dangerous. A text that once condemned idolatry can be turned into a weapon against fellow worshippers of God. A story about covenant can be reduced to a claim of ethnic supremacy. A sacred land can become a battlefield of domination rather than a place of justice. The deeper question is not only who has ancient roots in the land. The deeper question is whether people who claim Abraham's inheritance are living by Abraham's faith. Justice, mercy, hospitality, and submission to the one God. If the Holy Land is truly holy, then holiness cannot be measured only by borders, flags, or ancient conquest stories. It must also be measured by how the weak, the displaced, and the oppressed are treated. The tragedy of the modern Holy Land is that the language of God is sometimes used to deny the rights of people who worship God. That is not the spirit of Abraham. It is the corruption of his legacy.